Hey guys, welcome to my channel. It's been a while, but I'm back. Today we're going to be talking about trauma bonds versus attachment bonds. Watch this video. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. If you've been with me for a while, thank you so much. If you're new here, please click the subscribe button and the bell to receive notifications when I release new videos. I want to dive in today. I have been away from YouTube for a while because I've been focusing on my new podcast. If you don't know, it's called Misunderstood, Guiding Highly Sensitive People Through an Emotional Dark Age. What we dive into mostly, and I'm going to be sharing a lot more videos on here as well, so it's simultaneous, but what we share about a lot is not only breaking generational wound cycles, right? You're the cycle breaker if you're the sensitive one. You're also probably the scapegoat if you're the sensitive one. And by the way, the scapegoat, the golden child, the lost child, they can all shift roles. And on these subjects, I like to talk a lot about how in a healthy family, you create an attachment bond. Attachment bonds take a while to develop. They are created over a long period of consistent time of being consistent, of having a healthy dynamic, which means healthy parenting and healthy partnership are the same in the way that when you're happy, they're happy. When you're being who you truly are in your autonomy, they love it and support it. When you're in a toxic family or a wounded family, your autonomy is their threat. You having an opinion outside of their opinion is not allowed. In essence, your true self, your authentic self, gets annihilated or ignored when you speak up on behalf of your truth. And so much of the healing from something that's opposite of attachment bonding, but trauma bonding, which is what I just described, the instant connection, the intense connection, the love bombing, the devaluing, the discard, the love bombing, how do I earn her love or his love? How do I stay in the good with them so I can survive? We have to heal this over time, but there's very specific ways to do it. So I'm going to share a lot of that today. And what I want to say about this is if you had a parent that you had a trauma bond with instead of an attachment bond, which means sometimes they like me, sometimes they don't. I can never quite get her acceptance or his acceptance. I can never quite feel that they think I'm enough. They actually tell me I'm wrong all the time. They actually tell me I should doubt myself or do things that make me doubt myself. When I'm being my autonomous self or something goes wrong in life, they blame me as if it's my fault. We carry all of this into our relationships because unless we heal our inner child before relationships, we are feeling that true love is more of a traumatic bond instead of an attachment bond, meaning it's that instant, chemical, intense connection that ends up having red flags that we ignore and then ends up being a disaster in the end. And many people get caught in it for years and years and years because that dopamine hit of the love bomb is what you lived for as a kid. Here's something you have to think about. If you're not sure if you had a trauma bond with your parent, think about this. This is the parent that's not consistent, that loves you and then doesn't love you, or loves you and then hates you, never fully accepts you, never fully sees you, never fully lets you be you, never fully allows you to have your needs and desires and actually criticizes you for it. But this is also the person you have to go to for emotional support and validation. And this is the person you need for safety, security, and survival. Confusing. Ultimately, what that leads to is the abandonment of self. It leads to the abandonment of self because if I'm abandoning my true needs, desires, emotions, that is self. We're abandoning that and we're adopting those of the parent that we need for security, safety, and survival. So chances are you're doing this in your relationships if you did that at home with your original caretaker. People don't understand. They come to me, they're like, I don't know why I keep attracting narcissists. I'm like, tell me about your family. Sorry, it's true. Because the emotional imprint of someone who grew up in a healthy home, who was encouraged to be autonomous, encouraged to explore their individuality and their gifts and wasn't, dismissed or the parent wasn't threatened by their gifts, right? That's healthy. When you come in contact with someone who's love bombing you, you'll be like, this feels weird. But those of us who grew up in a family where we couldn't quite earn the love that we thought we deserved, and then we just had to believe it was our fault or we didn't deserve it or we did something wrong or there's something wrong with us, we are very much into the relationships that are love bombing because we are starved of love. We have a void. So you have to understand that first. If you are in narcissistic relationships, I encourage you to look deeper into your family, because before the age of 8, our emotional imprint is set. Did someone die when you were young? That can also create it. Did you have an addicted parent? Did you have a borderline or narcissistic parent? You don't know that at that age, so you just think there's something wrong with you. But as we get older, we see that inconsistent love and that starving and that need to earn and need to achieve, because then they'll see that I'm worthy, but they never do because they can't because of their cluster B or whatever wound they have. And so when I talk about attachment bonding versus trauma bonding, we have to understand that trauma bonds are really what people with abandonment wounds fall into as well, because they need to feel that attachment right away. They need to feel an intensity right away to feel safe and secure. That just tells me you have an abandonment wound because you've abandoned self and you need other in order to validate. So I do a lot of these reels on Instagram, and people always DM me saying, well, what do I do? How do I do this? And I say, you have to have safe people in your life, whether it be a coach, a therapist, someone who understands this stuff. Most of them don't. And friends, family, anyone that you feel safe with. We have to find safe people. Maybe it's an online group. You can always join my truth room. It's free for 2 weeks. These are people all over the world that are now like a safe place for healing, because it's all about the truth. We don't judge. It's all validation of these woundings because we've all been through it. And when you have this safe space, your nervous system can relax to a level of allowing those scary emotions and memories to come forward and not be judged and be accepted and validated so that they can integrate. I was working with a bunch of clients today on this, and one of the things is I caught a bunch of my clients in this group in a cycle. Even though they've done all this work, we still have this piece of the puzzle that I was working with today, that you still want to somehow blame yourself for some of it. One of my clients said, well, I don't know if it was the chicken or the egg. And I said, what do you mean? And she says, I don't know if I was born highly sensitive or if it was created. I go, what are you talking about? If you were born highly sensitive, you should have gotten the nurture and the nourishment to explore that gift. That wasn't a bad thing. And she's like, oh, I'm doing it again. Yeah. So we can catch ourselves in these cycles of continual self-blame because we had to blame ourselves as children to get through the trauma. And then what this creates is cognitive dissonance. What is that? It's two competing thoughts at the same time. I love my mother. She's amazing. I needed her. And she was really abusive. So we have these competing things where we learn to not trust our perception of things, not trust ourselves. And then we compound that by blaming ourselves for not being able to trust ourselves. You know what I mean? How many of you have come to me years into your healing and said, I'm so ashamed of myself for not leaving sooner. I'm so ashamed of myself for, having this upper limits my whole life just because my mom didn't love me. And I say, what are you talking about? If you didn't feel like your mom loved you, that's basically saying I didn't have a mirror of who the hell I am. I didn't have anyone to give me the permission slip to say I'm okay. And then this also gets compounded if you're bullied in school, because a lot of us got lucky and a lot of us didn't. And what I feel was lucky in my life is, yeah, I felt bullied at home, but then anywhere outside of home, I was accepted and loved. So I was like, wait, this is confusing and weird. Do they just not know the truth of me is bad? Or is the truth of me not bad and something's wrong at home? Many of you had the home trauma and then they had the school trauma or the relationship trauma or the work trauma. So you were compounded with the message that something's wrong with you. And the way I tell people to get out of that is really look, did you already project onto your world all of this stuff? This is what I mean. I have a client that goes to the pub, right? She lives in Ireland. She goes to the pub and she's like, I feel like people are rejecting me there. I go, is that true? Or that's the evidence that you're assuming is so. And maybe it's you that's closed off and they think you don't like them. We have to really double check this. Am I not accepted everywhere, or do I just automatically assume and project outside of myself that I'm probably not likable? There's something you're probably going to find that's wrong. And any slight look or gesture or ghosting or someone didn't text me back right away creates that anxiety because we're so used to that. And we're so afraid that that's true. Some people try to prove it out of themselves. Like, see, I'm so great. I'm proving that I'm great, but you're not really being authentic. You're just being a high achiever, right? Or we just assume we're unlikable and we live below the veil. What we have to understand is There is nothing you could have ever done wrong enough to be treated anything other than loved as a child in a healthy situation. Kids are learning. Teens are integrating. We're trying to find ourselves in our home and then our world, and it's complicated. And what we need, is people to support us finding ourselves. I always say, don't be mad about losing those who want you to lose yourself. The road back to self is to stop abandoning ourselves. And this is the way that we start, okay? I'll give you a great example. If someone says something to you that you don't like and you keep it in because you don't like conflict, that's abandoning the self. Being true to the self and rebuilding trust is standing up for your truth, standing up for your emotional reality and saying, I'm just wondering, are you mad at me? Because it seems like maybe you are. Getting to the bottom of it instead of just assuming that the evidence I'm seeing is actually accurate. We need to double check these things. And so what I was telling my clients today is like, the first step is checking things out instead of assuming, number one. Number two, speaking up. Hey, Mom, I don't like the way you just said that to me. Many of you are cringing right now when I say that. We need to speak up and say, I don't know. Pretend you're super worthy. What would someone who's worthy do? What would someone who knows they're worthy do? What would someone who's super confident do? This is how we have to unravel this pattern of crap, literally, and really come back to our truth is by standing up for the true emotion. Then you stop doing to your inner child what was done to you as a child. You start building trust between your inner self and your adult self. And when we build this trust, we start to listen to ourselves again. We start to hear more of that guidance. Our inner child starts speaking louder, and it's like, it's not like I don't know anymore. It's like, I know, that's what I like. This is how it starts, is by having a feeling and speaking up on behalf of it. Not being afraid that you might be wrong, not falling into that doubt, not falling into, I don't want to upset someone because I need people. I don't want to be wrong, and then there's something wrong with me again. Checking it out and speaking up. Unlocking this truth box and giving it a voice and practice it at home. Write all out how I feel and why that's pretty valid. And then start, as you practice that, get a little stronger and then start to do it out loud. I want you guys to try that for me this week. I'm coming back full force on YouTube. Don't worry. A lot of you have been DMing me like, where are you? What's going on? All is well. I just want you guys to check out Misunderstood Podcast. I want you to go to Instagram and say hi to me and give me ideas and topics you want to hear on my podcast and my videos. I love it. So you know where to find me. I love you guys. Please comment if you have something you want me to hear about. Please share this with anyone you think needs it. And I just appreciate you. I love you so much, and I'll see you soon.